Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen.
Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth.
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political, sports, and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 33, so whether you're coming back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in. While In the Shed with Wes is certainly a news show, I am a journalist after all. I've been transparent with you that as we continue to grow this thing together, not only will we keep bringing you the news that you need to hear, but we're also going to begin doing some standalone episodes of the show as well, having conversations with those of merit in the field of politics, sports, and the paranormal, doing our best to keep bringing you the news that you need while also bringing you voices, views, and conversations that you might not have heard otherwise. Tonight is our first such episode, and to kick things off, we are joined by experienced paranormal and Bigfoot researcher, host of the Bigfoot Club podcast, Texas's own Robert Jesse Dominguez, or as he's known to some, Bigfoot Bob. Bob, thanks for joining us on the show tonight.
Wes, thanks for having me on. I am super excited, man. I know I've been waiting since December to come on the show. I go, man, I was just, I'm just excited about being on your show because I've been listening to your show because I normally don't watch politics, but if I get politics, it's usually through your show.
I appreciate that, man. It has been a long time coming. Been waiting to have you on the show. We've been trying to work it out together, so we're glad to have you tonight. Bob, how about starting out? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your experiences in the field. About your experience as a Bigfoot researcher. What have you done? What experience do you have in the field?
Okay. I actually started in 99, 2000. I was working for Sprint. I could actually say it now because I don't work there anymore. I was working for Sprint Corporate Real Estate in 1999, and I just typed in the word Bigfoot, on the internet. And what popped up was it was the 12th annual Bigfoot conference in Newcomerstown, Ohio. It was run by Don Keating. And what popped up was Luke Rose was there. And Luke Rose is a Texas Bigfoot researcher.
Okay.
At the time, I didn't know who he was. So his name popped up. And he was wearing a cowboy hat. And he was in Newcomerstown doing, I guess he was there for the Bigfoot conference. So I had his email on there. So I emailed him. And he actually emailed me back right away and said, hey, I'm going to be in Missouri next week, and I'm going to be doing some Bigfoot stuff. I'll get in touch with you the following week. So he did that. Once he did that, we reached out. We were on a phone conversation probably for 4 hours.
Wow.
And he was telling me, hey, I'm getting ready to start the Texas Bigfoot Research Center group. I want you to be a part of it. Would you like to come and join me? I said, yes, absolutely. And at this time, Wes, I didn't know anything about Bigfoot. I didn't know anything about Bigfoot in Texas. I didn't know anything about Bigfoot being like south of the U.S. at all. I was just, I watched it on TV,
right.
In Search of, The Legend of Boggy Creek, just stuff like that. So I had no idea Texas had Bigfoot. And so I just thought it was going to be like a book club, just join and just talked about Bigfoot. So it turned out, we ended up going out to East Texas. East Texas has a lot of Bigfoot stuff.
Really?
And a lot of people will probably deny that and stuff like that. But man, I can take you out to East Texas and I find footprints in East Texas. And I don't tell anybody where I'm going. I'll just go out there and I'll find footprints all the time. And so we've been on a lot of Bigfoot excursions, just go into areas, and people would like reach out to us via the website and just like tell us, hey, we had a Bigfoot incident, so we would go out and try to prove or disprove whether Bigfoot are in that area or not. So, I mean, I've been like in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana. I've been to North Carolina. I've been to Ohio. I've been to, let me see.
Over how many years is this that you've been doing this research, Bob?
So I've been doing it since '99. I stopped, doing physical research in 2017, and I kind of took a step back because, like, at the time, and I just like with any other niche that anybody does, there is like a bunch of negative stuff within the Bigfoot community. So I took a step back in 2017 and decided, you know what, this is the group. The community was very, very negative. So I took a step back, and I kind of just thought about just getting away from it. So I got lured back into it with a couple of incidents. So I got back into it. And then as 2019 rolled around, I was playing with the idea of doing a podcast and just talk about all my experiences, because I've done a ton of Bigfoot stuff, and I've done a ton of paranormal stuff. So I just wanted to start talking about it rather than going out and doing it. But if anybody reaches out to me now and needs help, I would gladly step right back into it and go back out in the field and do some stuff. There's a couple of places I want to go that I've had some stories about Bigfoot that I want to go explore, because some of the stories that we talk about on the podcast is the Bigfoot is like very, very aggressive. So as a Bigfoot researcher, that's what you want, an aggressive Bigfoot. So they would step out of the woods and you can, document it and take pictures of it and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what I would want, Bob, an aggressive Bigfoot.
Yeah. I think. I think like my mom, like for the longest time, she hated that I would go out and do it. So
yeah. And that's what I was going to ask. So you've been doing this since 1999. By the way, and I'm not throwing stones your way. I was born in 1989. So you've been doing this almost as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
What in the world, what age, when did you first learn of Bigfoot? When did you become first interested in Bigfoot? Has this been a part of your life forever, or did you just stumble across it as a teenager? How did you get started in your interest in Bigfoot?
Well, it started back in, I think, the Legend of Boggy Creek was released. I'm probably going to be wrong about this, but the Legend of Boggy Creek was released in 1975, and my dad took me to a drive-in to go watch it, and I was sitting in the front seat with my mom and my dad. I was probably like 5 or 6 at the time, and every time a scary part of the movie would come out, I would go down and hide under the dashboard and stuff. And whenever it was clear, my father would say, "Okay, it's clear," and I'd come back up and look and stuff. But I was like, ever since then, I was intrigued. And like years later, I ended up going to we had our first annual Texas Bigfoot conference in Marshall, Texas, and long and behold, I met Smoky Crabtree. So the Crabtrees were all in that area. The name Crabtree was all over that story, and I approached him, and I started talking about it. I just said, "Hey, I just want you to know that, the Legend of Boggy Creek had me going, and that's how I got into Bigfoot." And he was really nice about it. He kind of like, scuffed a little bit and said, "You know what? I don't want to talk about that movie." And I later found out that, him and his family were like talking about to that documentary guy that was doing it.
Really?
And he ended up using all their stories, but didn't change like the names later on, and didn't give them any money or any credit for it. He was kind of swole about it. So, I told him later on, "Hey, I'm sorry. I apologize." And he's already passed away already. Rest his soul. But he was really a good man. He was real nice to me. He could have been real ugly with me, but he wasn't. He was really nice. So I was really happy with that.
And so after you started actually doing field research and you were going out into the woods in search of Bigfoot or evidence of Bigfoot, what did your family think? Did they think that you were crazy at first? Did they ever like poke fun at you? Did your friends like mock you, or did folks kind of get it from the beginning?
Yes, I had a group of friends that I, went to high school with, and, we all played football and, 5A football, and we're all, close and tight. We're all macho and stuff. But the moment I started doing Bigfoot stuff, all my friends just disowned me. They quit talking to me. And, at that time, I was thinking, you know what, I'm Sting and they're the police, so I'm just going to go my own way. And I was carrying that group anyway, so I just I left them. And yeah, you're right. I did have a lot of family members, poke fun at me about it, and they, to this day, they kind of still do. But I don't. If you're going to be in Bigfoot research or like the paranormal, you got to have what we call, like in the field, you got to have armadillo skin.
Right.
You got to have tough skin. So, because you're going to be made fun of a lot. And back in the early days, whenever I was researching Wes, I mean, we didn't have like the fast internet back then. Whenever I was doing it, so we had to go to house, like in the areas that actually we thought Bigfoot was at, and we would go knocking on doors, and we would get our, doors slammed in our face all the time. And sheriff and game wardens would laugh at us and stuff. So, to me, that's just part of it, and most of the eyewitness reports I got, I would just think, if I got like 6, there's probably like 26 that I didn't get because people are afraid to talk about it.
Right.
They just are.
Right.
And so they don't want to be made fun of, like in the, in their own, like, small town. And I get it. If they don't want to talk, that's cool. And I used to hand out business cards that said, call me if you want to talk. And at this point now, because whenever I first started doing Bigfoot, I was really into documenting, like if it was actual, like a real animal, or if it was really there. And then as I got older, I kind of just, I just wanted to help people, because a lot of people, as you start talking to people like in the field, there's people that are actually scared of this thing. They're actually convinced that they actually seen something or they actually saw something. And so they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have like a spouse or a family member that will support them, or even like the local, law enforcement doesn't support them. So I'm like their last, conduit for help. And so I kind of want to just help them. And so I said, just call me.
Yeah.
And so I've had some people call me like for months and months and months.
Essentially, like what you're saying is people have seen something and they believe it to be a Bigfoot, but whatever they have seen has been so alarming or jarring to them that it affects them. It scares them. It leaves a mark, an indelible mark. But in order for them to share it, it's kind of a hard thing to do because they're laughed at, because they are written off as crazy. It's just a hard thing for folks to talk about.
It is, and it's like one of those things. Like recently, probably like the last season, and last season we talked about Longview, and I don't know if you've heard that episode. It was like maybe 3 or 4 episodes that we eventually got the gentleman that had this amazing story in like Longview, and he came on and talked to us, and like he first approached me because we were working together, and when he was a contractor of mine. He reached out to me, some of his coworkers that said, hey, if you want to talk about Bigfoot, talk to Bob. He does like, Bigfoot research. So he eventually like reached out to me, and he goes, hey, I want to get something off my chest, but I don't want my name out. I don't want anybody to know about this story. I just want to talk to you about it. I go, okay. So we ended up talking, and this guy ended up like having night terrors about it, and he never told his wife, never told his kids.
Wow.
And to this day, he's never told them, and he's already, he's not with his wife anymore. He still hadn't told her.
Wow.
And so he was having like night terrors a lot, and we talked about it like maybe like 7-8 times, and I talked him through it, and he was convinced this was a monster and it was going to kill him. And I told him, I said, I go, if it wanted to kill you, it would have, because this thing's fast and this thing's is massive, and I go, it would have killed you, but I go, you were in its way of food. So the only reason why it showed itself is because you were like coming to get his food, and like his brother-in-law had put out some fish traps, and they were gonna go get him, and so this Bigfoot wanted these fish traps, so it stepped in front of them and said, hey, this is mine. I'm gonna shadow you out of this area until you're gone. And so that's what ended up happening, is that this Bigfoot pushed him out of this area and went back and got these fish traps. So I talked to him about it, and I told him, this thing probably had a family, probably had baby Bigfoots. It was probably like a monarch of its family, and he never thought of that. He just thought it was a monster, and I think his night terrors like went away.
Wow.
I helped him, and I was really happy about it. I mean,
absolutely,
we're still friends to this day. So
yeah, and that's something that I really respect about you. I think you know this. I am a hopeful skeptic when it comes to the issue of Bigfoot. I think that it's worthwhile to take an honest look and to keep an open mind. I hope that Bigfoot is real. I think it would be super dope. But I am somewhat skeptical. I've never had any experiences myself. But something that I really respect about you is you're in this, you have a desire to help people. You're in this for altruistic reasons. You're not just trying to, it's not a grift. You're not trying to make money. So even if folks are listening to this show and they say, I do not believe in Bigfoot, at least they can know, and I can vouch for the fact that Bob is coming into this conversation. This is who Bob is. He's open, he's honest, he believes in this wholeheartedly, and he's done years of research into it, and that's something that I think is pretty cool. Actually had a conversation with my 5-year-old tonight. She saw me getting ready to go. She said, Dad, you recording a show tonight? And I said, yeah. And she said, what is it about? And I said, well, tonight I'm actually doing an interview with my friend Bob. And she said, you don't have a friend named Bob. And I said, I do. It's my friend Bigfoot Bob. We're going to talk about Bigfoot. And she said, your friend Bob is not Bigfoot. I said, no, he's not Bigfoot. He just knows a lot about Bigfoot. And she said, has he found him? And I said, no, not yet. And she said, well, then Bigfoot must not be real then, huh, Dad? And I was like, man, what a harsh... What a harsh critic. I
like her already. So.
Yeah. She likes to watch shows like Mountain Monsters or Finding Bigfoot with me, just not at nighttime because, that's a little scary for her before she goes to bed. But if it's during the day, she's all about it. It's really funny. My wife asked her, do you believe in Bigfoot? And she kind of took her hand about halfway up and sort of shook it back and forth. It was like, maybe. So... that kind of describes where I'm at with all this too. Which, by the way, I heard you refer to Bigfoot in plural as Bigfoots, and I've heard a lot of people do that. Why is it not Big Feet?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think I've been at a couple of Bigfoot conferences, and some people walked up and asked me that.
Yeah.
And I go, I don't know why. That's a good question. And because I think a lot of people just think there's just one, and so people just think Bigfoot, and that's just one. And like my mom's asked me that, in the past, goes, so where is he at? If he's in Canada, how come he's down here? I said, Mom, there's more than one. There's a whole bunch of them. And you go, well, how much? I go, I don't know. They're a lot.
I don't know, Mom. I haven't counted.
My mom listens to the show regularly, and she's called into the show. I'm surprised she's not calling me now. And so she'll say, hey, what's going on? I said, I'm doing a show, Mom. And she goes, oh, I go, you're on the show right now, so say hello. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, she listens to the show, and she likes to, she actually had a Bigfoot experience when she was a teenager, and she just didn't know it. And
really?
She was telling me this amazing story, yeah. So it was an amazing story. Whenever she was a kid, my grandfather took them up to, I think it was Illinois, to go pick some stuff, and she was in the field at 3 a.m. picking stuff, and there was a cornfield right next to it, and right next to it something was yelling really loud, screaming really loud, and shaking the corn trees. I mean the corn stalks. And all the workers were yelling the word oso, which is bear in Spanish. And so they all ran to their vehicles and left. And so she told me this story a long time ago, and I said, Mom, that's not a bear. Bears don't do that. I go, bears. If bears are seen, if they have cubs, then they'll roar and stand up tall. But I go, I think you had a Bigfoot incident, because Bigfoots do that. They shake stuff and they scream at the top of their lungs to get people out of the area. Their food source.
Wow.
So she didn't even know it, and she had one. So I go, you've had a Bigfoot experience. So she was pretty astounded by that. So
yeah, that would be pretty
neat.
Pretty terrifying. And
yes.
Bears don't have opposable thumbs, so probably not. They don't have hands, so grabbing and shaking the corn, probably not a bear. I would say, safe to say. Do you have a preference? They seem interchangeable, but I'm asking questions like this for those who are not initiated into the topic. Is there a difference in Bigfoot and Sasquatch? Are they interchangeable, and do you have a preference?
Oh man, you're going down a path that hardly anybody asked me, and I love that you're asking this question. And as a Bigfoot researcher, I hate to do like a high fidelity moment where I'm super smart and I'm not. But
hey, if you want to be smart tonight, you be smart, Robert. You got this.
No, it's like it tells me like all the time, like whenever someone says the word Sasquatch, it taps me so bad, because that tells me that, like, if, like, okay, for example, if they're like in Ohio and they say, yeah, I'm a part of the Sasquatch group here, so that tells me right then and there that they're a lazy researcher, because the word Sasquatch is in the Pacific Northwest, and it's like in British Columbia, and it's under the Salish group that caused the word Bigfoot. It's actually Sasquatch. J.W. Burns in the 1930s, he was an agent of the Native Americans. He was working with them. He couldn't say Sasquatch, so he said Sasquatch. And so people down south using the word Sasquatch. That's like, for example, that's like calling every baseball fan a Yankee fan, and it's not. So that always gets me so bad. So and it bugs me. It bugs me to the T. I don't. I used to get really angry about it, but now I go, okay, whatever.
What you're saying is that in the South, if I'm going to the fridge and I'm going to get a soda, and you say, bring me a Coke, I might reply, what kind you want? And I might mean, do you want a Coke, a Dr. Pepper, or a Sprite? Because they're all Cokes. So essentially, when someone calls it a Sasquatch, they're actually referring to a Bigfoot from the Northwest.
I that's what I would think, but
okay.
People just see when it's on TV, what I call TV saturation, and they just like go what's on TV.
Well, that's super interesting. I have heard about that word coming from Native American origin before, but I have not heard that essentially us calling that is just because some white guy couldn't pronounce it back in the day.
Yeah,
that's pretty fun.
That's because like every Native American tribe has a different name for the word Bigfoot, and so because I know like in East Texas, it's like East Texas Cattle Indians, and I've reached out to the local cattle tribes and elders, and I've talked to them, and I've asked them. I said, what's the word for Bigfoot? And they don't have one. They believe that their ancestors came from the underground, like under the earth. And so whenever they were coming out, their ancestors came out of the earth, coming out to the surface, they were told not to look back, because if you look back, whatever that was in the earth would grab them and pull them back. And so that what they thought was Bigfoot was the earth reaching out to them and punishing them.
That's
I was amazed by
fuel.
that. I said, wow, that's cool. But I still wanted the name for like East Texas for like the Caddo Indians, but
yeah.
I didn't get that. So.
No, Bob, that's not cool. That is nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
That's true.
Well, $1 million question, two-parter. Here we go. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot? And if not, what experiences have you had that make you a believer?
I was going to answer that question whenever you were, telling the story about your daughter and that you didn't have a friend named Bob and stuff. But number one, I've never seen a Bigfoot, never have, and I've gotten close a couple of times, but I haven't. But most of the experiences that I've had, have got me to believe and start to think, okay, there's something out here. Because like I would go out to East Texas to an area, and I wouldn't tell anybody where I was going, and we would walk like 3-4 miles, like in the woods, and just hunker down and just hang out and just try to see if we can hear something. And there's been some occasions where I walked down a trail. And it was raining like that morning or something, and like there's puddles and there's like mud. There's mud everywhere, and so we're walking down the trail, and then I get radio to come back, and so I'm walking back the same trail I walk back, and so I was looking down as I was walking down these trails, looking at all the puddles, nothing there. So whenever I'm walking back, I see like an 18-inch print like in the mud and the water, and so Wes, this print was clearly like it took one step into the trail and then one step off. So it was probably a big Bigfoot and a large Bigfoot. So once it stepped in like into the mud and the water and the mud was still moving. And I could visibly see this footprint. And I go, that wasn't there before. And so, I mean, I've had like, you know, stuff thrown at me, like rocks and sticks and stuff, and
like
I've been yelled at and growled at
things,
and stuff, but I've never seen one. But
you've had things thrown at you?
Yeah, I mean, I've you know, because I know in East Texas, I can actually say this because I don't research anymore, but I used to go to this town called Moyers, Oklahoma, and it's in the Kimichi Mountains, and I had a buddy of mine that had like some property there. So in order to have this property, you know, you have to, you know, pay money to go there, and it's like a gate, have a security guard. You can't go past the gate without owning property there.
Right.
So we would go there and just research there because there was like so many sighting reports in that area. So we would go there, and we would be sitting by, you know, a campfire just talking, and it's like pitch black. You can barely see like in the hand in front of your, you know, your face. And so I hear like a big thud behind us. We're talking and laughing. We hear like a big thud, and we turn back, and this boulder was like probably the size of a basketball. It was rolling toward us, and you could barely see it coming in like into light of the firelight. And I go, oh, okay, I guess we're making too much noise. So I would yell really loud, okay, we'll keep it down. And so we would get stuff like that, or we would like, you know,
a Bigfoot noise complaint.
Yeah, we would be staying like in a cabin, you know, and in the middle of the night, just someone will walk by the cabin and just slap it in the middle of the night, 2 a.m.
When you have these experiences, are they exciting to you, rewarding? Are you terrified? How do they make you feel?
You know, whenever I first got into Bigfoot research, I was drawn to it, and I couldn't get away with it. And like Luke Gross, my mentor, the one that got me into the Texas Bigfoot Research Center, he told me at the very, very beginning, he says, Bob, you know, we're gonna go out here, we're gonna have this experience. It's either gonna, you know, scare the crap out of you, or it's gonna have this hooks in you, and you're never gonna want to come back. And so the first experience I had with him, you know, what do you think? I said, I'm hooked. And so I've been hooked ever since. And so every time I had an experience in the very beginning, I was terrified. And you know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been to like places in East Texas and Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas that you know, that it's just scary to be out there. You know,
right.
'cause you don't know what's out there, because there's hogs, there's snakes, and there's, you know, other stuff. And but every time I'm in the woods with Luke Gross, I'm not scared. I don't know why. I've said that on like my show, but when I'm with him, I'm just not scared. He's just like, I don't know. It's just
he's a person of peace for you.
Yeah.
Somebody that kind of takes the anxiety away, makes you feel like, hey, I'm in good hands.
Yeah, I mean, he is. And so now, as I've gotten older, and I've kind of like gone back and, you know, thought about a lot of stuff I've done, you know, I'm not scared, because I've done a ton of paranormal stuff. I've done a ton of Bigfoot stuff. And so, you know, I think the whole drive that I have, and I've said this over and over on my show, I just want to help people. So that's the drive, is to help people and to help them through this experience. And so that overrides like any fear that I have.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
It does. And let's unpack that a little bit. So when you were doing this field research for so many years, you guys had a tip called in or emailed in, and you decided to go out and research it. Share with us what all that entails. What methods do you use to actually sort out, is this person lying? Is this person delusional? Did they misidentify an actual animal? Like, what are the steps that you would take to investigate a claim?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I've never been asked that before. Whenever I was with the TBRC, we had like a website, and people would like, you know, go into our website and send us like a sighting report.
Can you define that for us? The TBRC, Texas Bigfoot Research
Center.
I was close.
The group. It's Texas Bigfoot Research Center. They're now called. They've changed their name already. It's now called the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. So it's now called that.
Cool.
But whenever, because I was like one of the 12 founding members of that group, and so when we got a sighting report, we used to look at it, and then we would pull up like a satellite of the area, and so we would look at, you know, if it's near like bodies of water, and if it was, we would look and see if there were like, you know, if game was supported there, like, you know, deer, hogs, whatever, then it could support a Bigfoot. You know, we would get claims there were nowhere near like any bodies of water or any kind of forest or anything like that. But, you know, our group would like always say, I don't know, we should go out there. But I always went out. I always investigated, because if you don't learn, if someone's trying to like, you know, hoax you, then you're never going to learn anything. So I would go out anyway, and whether I thought it was like a bogus sighting report or it was real, I would go out anyway and I would interview them. And that to me, that was the only way that you would learn, just by doing that. And so I would go out and do that. So, and a lot of researchers don't talk about this also, is that whenever you go out and you get a sighting report, you go to an area, you look for gas right-of-ways and electrical right-of-ways. And what these are there's like power lines that get cut through a county. Like they'll cut trees down just for power lines, and they'll do the same thing for like a gas line. And so if they have gas right-of-ways and electrical right-of-ways, like game and Bigfoots use this as a sidewalk through the county, through the woods, because it's an easier path just to walk. And so
I've never heard that before, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because like I would tell people all the time, I said, if you want to find footprints, if you want to find tree breaks, because, you know, Bigfoots leave tree breaks as signs of dominance or like signs of crossing or signs to another Bigfoot. Hey, we're in this area, blah, blah, blah. They like do that. So if you want to find like tree breaks, footprints, you go to these areas and you look there first. And then you go to like bodies of water, and then you go from there. So you look at what's in the area, okay? There's cattle, there's a fish hatchery, there's like, and even you have to do research whether there used to be a fish hatchery in the area or like a farm. You know, if so, what are they growing? Is it corn? Is it beans? Whatever. So you have to do research just to look at this area and just try to find out. You're kind of trying to think like a Bigfoot. Okay, why is a Bigfoot over here? You know, what's in this area? So, I mean, I've had stories of like Bigfoot's like, you know, stealing like 4 watermelons or a goat or a pig or stalks of corn. I've had stories about that. I mean, you just got to look what's in the area, because if there's farmers in the area, there's game in the area. So you kind of look for stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Have you ever had occasions where somebody has given you a story or spun a yarn, and even if they really did believe that they saw a Bigfoot, you were able to investigate it and come back to them and say, no, actually what you saw is this?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of cases like that, because I know, what was it? There was, because like, I'll just say this, okay? Everything that I've done in the TVRC, I can't use anymore. I can talk about it, but I can't write about it because it doesn't belong to me.
Okay.
But I've had some cases with them that it was like misidentified as something else.
Right.
So I think there was a case once where there was a fog or something like that, I think, and it was like a horse that was loose or something, and it was just standing straight away on somebody, and they thought it was a Bigfoot, and it turns out to be just a horse just standing facing the person directly, and it was during the fog, and they misidentified it, or like maybe a cat, like a big cat. There's actually big cats in East Texas, but it's not, the game wardens and the park rangers will say they're not. But I've seen prints out there. There's cats out there. And I've, some people say, hey, I saw Bigfoot, and we would go out there and look at it, and I find cat prints.
Yep.
And, I just had the idea. I said it was probably a cat trying to get up a tree, had its paw, against a tree, and it was just standing up. It's probably, looks about 6-7 feet tall,
Right.
So,
yeah, because that's my opinion, my unprofessional opinion, would be that in a lot of these instances, it would be somebody who's misidentifying something, whether it be a bear, whether it be another animal. I know on my first or second episode of the show ever, I shared a story about my grandfather. He grew up in West Virginia in the mountains. I mean, like middle of nowhere. And he still to this day has his family house. It's in a holler in West Virginia. There's a well. There's no electricity. It's remote. And one time he went there. He'd been going there his entire life. He lives in Mississippi now, but he drives out there several times a year and stays a couple weeks at a time. And one time a few years ago, he was there and was sitting around the campfire and heard something that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He came back from that trip and he was like, Wes, I don't know what that was. I've grown up my entire life in these woods. I've never heard anything like it. I know it sounds crazy. I think I heard a Bigfoot. And I was probably maybe 14 or 15 at the time. It was a little bit ago. But I remember being like really excited. Like I think my grandpa heard a Bigfoot. Turns out it was a full-grown African male lion that somebody had kept as a pet. And when it got too big, they released it into the West Virginia wilderness. And it roaring or making some kind of loud noise that my grandfather, not having grown up in Africa, had never heard in the wild. It scared him, and it sounded like a Bigfoot to him.
That makes total sense.
Makes
total sense because, but yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, if people haven't heard cats screaming in the woods, it's different. I mean, it sounds like a lady. It's like, I know cougars sound like a lady screaming or something.
Yep.
So
they do.
Barred owls sound like monkeys, to be honest with you, and a lot of people don't know that. And people will call us and say, "Hey, there's Bigfoots out here." I go, how do you know? Because they sound like monkeys outside. Because it's barred owl.
Wow.
So if you listen, if you just look it up on, YouTube, pull up barred owls, and they just sound like monkeys and just weird. And so I've had stuff like that. So but I would always investigate stuff like that, whether I thought it was fake or not. I would still do it because that's just like I said, you just have to learn that way, and that's the only way you're going to get better. So
if nothing else, it's good experience for sure. Well, we've talked about some common denominators when it comes to what areas you might go for these investigations. Areas that have a body of water, areas that can sustain the right type of food source for a Bigfoot. What about commonalities in the types of people that make these reports? In your experience, do they have certain traits in common more times than not? Just to check off some of the things, some of the objections that people might say. Do they tend to be folks that are just more gullible in general, that believe in every conspiracy and every cryptid? Are they people who are less educated? Are they people who are unemployed or who are always employed? What are the trends that you see in these people who report these cases?
I whenever that happens, when I started in '99, like I said, the web, the internet wasn't that fast, so there was dial-up, and I'm kind of dating myself there, but but there was dial-up, and so as the internet got faster, you can kind of see the progression of people who would call in for sighting reports and stuff like that. So at the very beginning, you got a lot of people that they got the internet and they were able to voice their opinion whether they saw something or not, and they would send it to you anonymously, and we got that a lot of times. And as these these Bigfoot groups, because whenever I started West, there was no Bigfoot groups in Texas at all. And now if you pull up Texas Bigfoot, there's probably 15, 20 groups now. And so as the internet's gotten faster and faster, you've gotten people that are more open to talk about it more and more and more. There's more Bigfoot conferences,
right?
Paranormal conferences, and so people want to come out and talk and be heard, and that's cool. But I've gotten people that are just like you say, just live in the holler, and they don't talk to anybody, and they'll eventually come to a Bigfoot conference and they'll just corner you, and they'll start talking about portals and Bigfoot and stuff. And then I've had doctors who've seen something retired doctors that have nothing to gain by telling me a story.
Yeah.
And then they've told me stories. I go, please don't. They say, please don't mention my name, because if you do, you could ruin my business.
Wow.
I said, no, I won't do it. I mean, I've been to Concho, Oklahoma. There was a story I did once that was on the internet. It was a Bigfoot that was supposedly that went up to a casino in Concho, Oklahoma, and drank out of a grease pit. And so I heard the story on a chat room, and so I reached out on this chat room. This one guy from, I think it was Oklahoma City, reached out to me. He said that his cousin or his niece worked there and that he could get me to talk to him. And I said, great. So I went up there with my nephew, Steven, that's on the podcast now. And we went up there. He was I think 14, 15 at that time. And we drove up there to go talk to them. And I just told him, I said, look, I don't want the video. I just want to see it. Just let me see it. I just want to see it. And it was like I think it was Choctaw area, and so I had to get permission to go there just to walk on Choctaw land from the elders, and you had to get paperwork, and I had to get like a liaison with me just to walk on there, just to go. But as soon as I got there, they just clammed up. They didn't want to talk. And so I said, I'm not leaving. I'm going to talk to somebody. I drove all the way up here. I'm not leaving. So I would walk in town, and I was like trying to talk to people. They didn't want to talk to me. And then I finally got a Native American Affairs officer pull up on me, and he started talking to me. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" And I was explaining to him, showing him the paperwork, and he says, I pull out like a tape recorder, Wes, and I said, "Hey, you have any Bigfoot experiences?" And he says, "Turn that off, and I'll talk to you." So I pull out the batteries, I show him, and I go, "Okay." And he starts talking to me. He goes, "Man, they're here every night. They're here every night. I can't talk about it because, we like get in trouble, and we can't say that they're here, but they are. They're here every night." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." So I get people like that, like a government official telling me that he's seen a Bigfoot, or he gets Bigfoot reports like almost like a nightly deal. So, so I've gotten all different kinds of people talk to me about it. I've gotten housewives. I've had, like I said, doctors. I've had, Native American Affairs officers. I've had game wardens that would not talk to me on the record about stuff like that. So, and I can't, I don't use it because I promised them, I won't use it. So,
right.
But I don't do sighting reports anymore. I just don't do it. I just rather just help people and just talk about people. Just talk about people who've done it on like the podcast. So
yeah.
But yeah, I've had all kinds of people.
And I think that's a really important thing for people to know who are listening to this. That there are all kinds of people from all areas of life, and they work all types of jobs that come from all different kinds of backgrounds who claim to have seen and experienced Bigfoot. It's not just people who are uneducated or who are incredibly gullible, or we're talking doctors and police and government officials and folks who don't want their names shared on record. It's a wide swath of the community as a whole. Let me ask you this, Robert. How confident are you that Bigfoot is real?
I would say, like I said before, I've been in areas that I cannot explain, like some of the stuff that happened there. And like I said, I've never seen it before, but I am probably I would say 90% sure that there's Bigfoot out there. Because I've been in areas, Wes, and like areas like East Texas, and if anybody knows what like a bow dart tree is like super dense wood, and it's really hard to break those. Like chainsaws break whenever they try to cut this stuff. And so I've been in an area where a Bigfoot was that I was researching at, and this Bigfoot walked down this tree line of bow darts, and like 8 feet up, it would just twist these 3-4 inch diameter branches. And it was what he was doing is that he was telling me that he was like the dominant one in that area, and he was passing through. And so he went down this one area, and he was like twisting these branches, like 3 or 4 trees, and it was like so loud. It sounded like a shotgun going off.
Wow!
And I thought someone was shooting at us, and I go, "Someone's shooting at us." And Luke Gross, my mentor, says, "No, that's Bigfoot. He's breaking trees, letting us know that he's here."
Wow!
So the next morning we get up and we go to the area where we thought it was at, and we found it, and it was like down this tree line, and it was like west. There was like no vehicle, truck marks in that area. There's no vehicle truck marks. There was like nothing like any kind of man-made item there.
No sign of people at all.
I looked up on these trees, and it was like 8 feet high, and these things were like twisted, not broken off, twisted like with like you said earlier, with a opposable thumb. So whatever did this, twisted it with his hand each time as it walked down these trees. And so when I saw that, I got pretty scared. I said, "That's real." I didn't see it, but that's impossible to duplicate from like a man,
right,
just standing in that area. So it's just to me, I'm convinced that that's in the area. So
and I would say if I was gonna you're at 90, I'm probably more like 55-45, and the 55 is really, if I'm keeping it 100, the 55 is really just because I would rather there be Bigfoot than not. As somebody, yeah. I hear stories, I read stuff. I've just never experienced anything in real life myself. For those who are like me, who are skeptical or hopeful skeptics, What would you say is the best evidence out there available right now?
I'm going to always say that the Patterson film is probably the best thing right now. And I know it's like, to me, I don't want a Bigfoot shot and killed. I don't want to be a part of that. But in order to have science identify it, there's going to have to be a body. And I don't really go along with that. But I think the Patterson-Gimlin film is probably the film that was in 1967 in Bluff Creek, California.
Right.
That's probably the most thing that whenever I watch that, I still get hair. My hair stands up whenever I watch that one, because like I saw that, and then like the following year I went up to New Comerstown for the 13th annual Bigfoot conference, and I met this guy named Larry Lund. And anybody that does Bigfoot research knows who Larry Lund is. He's a Bigfoot researcher out of the Pacific Northwest. And he's an older gentleman. Whenever I met him, and he had 5 of these album books that he was just taking Polaroids in, or just pictures. And so I whenever I was at this conference, I walked into his hotel room, because the Bigfoot guys all had their doors open, and they were, you could go in there and mingle and just talk to people. And so I walked into his room and started talking to him, and he was showing me pictures of Bluff Creek the day after, or that week after Roger Patterson had seen that or filmed that Bigfoot. And he was showing me pictures, and he showed me pictures of it. He was telling me that creek bed had volcanic ash, and he said volcanic ash is very dense, and a heavy animal would have to leave a footprint. And he was showing me like the footprints and stuff like that, and I think he had like a mathematician out there that was doing the stride, like measuring the strides and stuff. So he showed me all these pictures, and I looked at them, and all of it looked really, really real. And so to me, I was a believer then. I was a believer whenever I saw the video, but whenever I met Larry Lund, I was a complete believer then. So
okay,
that's just me.
Well, let's talk Patterson-Gimlin film. Because honestly, if we're talking about evidence, a lot of the stuff that folks point to as evidence just doesn't quite cut it for me or for a lot of people who are skeptical.
Right.
Footprints, you start talking about the scientific reasons why a footprint looks one way or another, you lose me. I'm not that smart, Bob.
Right.
If we're talking wood knocks or vocalizations, it could be anything in the woods. There's all kinds of things that make noises, especially if we're not familiar with how a big cat sounds, how an owl sounds, like you said, and even sightings, even people just saying they saw something. I don't know what to do with that. Some people are being honest. Some people might have misidentified. But then we look at something like the Patterson-Gimlin film. When you look at it, some people might say it looks like a guy in a monkey suit. What would you say to somebody that says that?
Well, I know if anybody knows M.K. Davis, he's out of, I think, Missouri. I think I'm not sure. I'm probably wrong with it, but he's done like an extensive deal on the Patterson-Gimlin film, and he's like, I guess his background is like film study or something. He's gone to Bigfoot conferences and blown up shots of this and stuff like that. But to me, I know at the same time they did Planet of the Apes, and so it's kind of ironic that same time they're filming that movie, this footage comes out.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, it's like that gait is just really hard. It's hard to walk with your knees bent. So if you look at that over and over, if you just go back and just look at it and just play it over and over, that Bigfoot's walking with his knees bent, and that's really hard to do. And for that distance it covered, to me, that's hard to do. And I'm not here, Wes, to convince anybody that Bigfoot exists. I'm just here to help people. But to me, in my eyes, that is probably the most believable, film right now. There's tons of films out there right now.
There are,
but
yeah.
That one always sticks to me the most. And there's a couple.
How about people that point to Patterson himself, who cite the passage of bad checks and forgery and things like that? Is that something that takes away credibility from the film at all in your eyes?
To me, yeah, it does, because I know at that time also he had written I forgot, in some book about a drawing that had a female. Like it took years for people like M.K. Davis to point out that the Patterson-Gimlin film was a female and that it had breasts and stuff like that. I don't know if a lot of listeners know that, but yeah, M.K. Davis pointed that out. And I know Roger Patterson wrote a book, I think like 7-8 months before that, or he drew a picture of a female Bigfoot that had breasts, but he never mentioned it like whenever he did the video. But it was just kind of ironic how that happened. And then like right before that, I think Humboldt News had written a story, and that's where they came up with him. I think in 1958 they wrote a story about Jerry Crew and his construction group that had had footprints around their construction group, and they used the term Bigfoot. And so it wasn't too far away from that. So that news article came out in 1958,
right?
Like in Bluff Creek. And then, Patterson, he drew that picture of a female Bigfoot, and then you had Patterson doing, the film after that. So it's a coincidence to me. It's kind of odd, but
yep.
The work, I think to me, the work speaks for itself. I mean, it's a coincidence, but to me, that's going to be the standard until we have a body.
And if you're looking at the Patterson-Gimlin film, I think that there's certainly validity to what you're saying about physically some of the things that you see in that video would be difficult, bare minimum difficult to replicate. The anatomy of the Bigfoot is something that people point to a lot. I think there's credibility in those things, as well as the fact that in 1967, you mentioned Planet of the Apes. If you compare even just the way that the costuming is on Planet of the Apes to the Patterson-Gimlin film, in the Planet of the Apes, we're talking about Hollywood. We're talking about the best in the business at the time versus just some random guy. If your claim is that Patterson and Gimlin faked the film, they did one heck of a job and probably should have had a career in Hollywood.
Yeah, because I think on that one, Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson had a falling out, and I think I forgot who had. I think his wife had. Well, because like Roger Patterson died of cancer like shortly after that, or like some years after that, and Bob Gimlin didn't have any part of it, and he was silent for a long time until maybe like 10 years ago, and he started doing interviews. Like, because I think I had his number for the longest time. I just was too scared to call him and to do an interview, and I was scared to call him, and like I never did, and like he started doing interviews again, and now he's doing like the rounds right now on all the Bigfoot conferences and stuff.
Yeah, you're the guy to interview him. You got to get him on Bigfoot Club. It's got to happen.
Yeah, I got to get him on there, and like he's doing all these rounds now, and he's talking to everybody, and he's got Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff. So it's kind of cool that he's doing it, but I mean, to be honest with you, if they were faking it and he wanted money, he would have been on like Johnny Carson, like in the 70s and stuff. But he never did. He didn't do any of that.
Right. And there was a guy, was his last name Hieronymus, that at one time had claimed that he was the...
Yeah, Bob Hieronymus, yeah.
Do you put any stock in his claims that he says I was the guy in the costume, it was all fake?
He's like 5'9". He's like 5'9", unless he's got stilts or something.
So that's a hard pass. Hard pass on that one. What if the Patterson-Gimlin film was proven without a shadow of a doubt to be false? Would that shake your belief in Bigfoot, or would it be a disappointment but not really change the data that you've seen over time?
It would like if I had a time machine and go back in time and did that, then I'd probably be interested in something else. But yeah, it wouldn't shake me now, but it would be disappointing. Like I don't know if you recalled a couple years ago, there was I can't think of I don't want to say this guy's name, but he faked like a Bigfoot body like in Georgia.
Yep.
And he had like a rich guy come and give him money for it, and like at that time. Whenever that kid, like it was on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS. It was on everywhere, and like everybody was calling me and saying, "Hey, Robert, are you watching this?" I go, "Yeah, I'm watching it." So I don't want to give that guy any place, but I'm not gonna say his name.
I support that.
He was on there, and like I was pulling at the time. I was pulling for him. I said, I hope it's a body. I really do. And it wasn't, and it was like a big joke. And so I was pissed after that. So I would be kind of like that right now. If the Patterson-Gimlin was like fake, I'd be pissed, but I'd still carry on. Yeah,
I mean, it's certainly a compelling piece of video footage. It's been dissected since 1967. It's still talked about today. It's an important piece of video footage when it comes to cryptozoology. There's no doubt about it. Another thing that we have talked about on our show in the past is the case of the Minnesota Iceman. What is your impression of that story? And for those that didn't hear that episode, they can go back and listen to it. But the Cliff Notes version is there was a guy that claimed to have a body that was preserved in a block of ice that may or may not have been a Bigfoot. Do you think there's any validity in this story?
I think when I first heard that story, that was the one that supposedly, like, it was shot in Asia, like in Vietnam or something like that, right?
Yes, that's right.
And then, like, he crated it back over and then froze it in ice and stuff like that.
Yes.
That, I don't know. That, to me, he didn't want anybody, I think, to X-ray it or something like that. And to me, if you, because I think he wanted to parade it around, right, like in carnivals and stuff like that, and he wanted to pay people to pay money, like, to watch it or like to view it and stuff.
Yeah, he did for a long time.
Once you don't let science look at it, then I'm not interested in it.
Yeah, and he did. He took it on tour for a long time, and then at some point he stopped taking it around and showing it, and claimed that he had swapped it out with a different body. He had several stories. His story was never kept straight. But I remember that being one of the first stories that I ever saw about Bigfoot that kind of piqued my interest, and still does, because we still don't know for sure what it was in that block of ice. Was it something that he made? And if so, how did he make it? I would even want to know that.
Yeah, because I think someone bought it on eBay, right?
I think it's
museum and.
It's in Austin, Texas currently at the Museum of the Weird. So you can actually still go see it to this day. And if I ever make it out that way, I'm going to for sure.
Well, let me know. I'll go with you, man.
That'd be dope. That'd be awesome. What about Yeti? Is Yeti just Bigfoot in another country in a cold climate, or is that a totally different thing when it comes to the research in the world of Bigfoot?
From what all the reports that I've read about the Yeti, and it's, to be honest with you, it's kind of hard to gauge how tall a Yeti is, because it's standing next to a mountain or a hill, or there's not any trees there, so it's kind of hard to do it. But all the reports that I've read throughout the time, and I know Tom Slick did a ton of research. He's a oil guy from Texas, in the 30s and stuff, and There's been a lot of, from what I've read, it's supposedly super tall, super 10 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
So to me, a Yeti's like the grandfather of cryptozoology on the Bigfoot scale. So the Yeti's like the super alpha, and the Bigfoot's probably a smaller version of it. So. But they were saying all that stuff, but it's again, it's kind of hard to gauge the actual, standing next to a mountain or going up a mountain and stuff. So I don't know. That's some of the eyewitness reports and stuff could be embellished it or something. I don't know.
Sure.
But from what I read, I think it's the same, but just a little bit bigger. Because, you have that, and then you have Bigfoot's in Canada and the Pacific Northwest. They're 8 to 9 feet tall, and they're 800 pounds. The ones here in Texas, all the ones I've gotten are the largest ones I've read, did insert reports on 300 pounds, 400 pounds. So they're a smaller version of the Bigfoots in the Pacific Northwest and Yetis and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's I'm assuming that they're smaller because of the climate. That's how I'm looking at it.
I think that makes sense. With animals, where they live, what they eat, all of that affects their size. So I mean, I could see that being the case. what would you say? I know you're not here to convince people that Bigfoot is real, but what would you say to somebody that says that they need to see a body? They can't believe unless they see a body.
You know, you know, to me on that one, I would agree with him. I don't. That's a sore subject with me because I don't believe in killing one.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to save the rest of them, I think you have to. And I hate talking. You know, not I hate talking about it. It's just I hate to agree with people like that because it's just one of those things. You just got to do it. You know, you have to do it because I think, to be honest, the way I look at it, Wes, is it's like, say for example, somebody in Colorado shot and killed a Bigfoot, and they proved it's there. Okay, well, they proved it's in Colorado, and that's it. And then if you're going to do it, you got to do it in Texas, you got to do it in Oklahoma, you got to do it in Louisiana, you got to do it in Arkansas. You know, every state has their different laws when it comes to animals and science and stuff like that. So, to me, if they shot and killed one, that would be awesome. I would hate it, but then I would rejoice on it because they will actually have to claim it as a species.
Right.
Because like I've been in East Texas and I've been harassed by game wardens and park rangers because I was in the area and they knew I was a Bigfoot researcher and I was in the area and they would harass me until I left. So for them to classify it as an animal, that would be good. I would like that because like I had to lie a lot of times whenever I was in the field because I think at the time I was researching, I was going to school. And so I got harassed a couple times by game wardens and stuff, and I would, whenever they would come talk to me again, I would say, hey, I'm just a student. I'm writing a paper on deer migration, and I'm doing soil samples. So I would tell them that. So they would leave me alone. So, I mean, because like game wardens, they don't play, man. If they don't want you in the area, they'll harass you until you're gone. If they know you're a Bigfoot researcher, they'll harass you.
I believe you because I watch that show, Texas, what is it called? Texas, I can't remember the name, but it's about game wardens in the state of Texas. My wife and I like to watch that show, and I see how sometimes they give people a hard time just for being in the area that they don't want them in.
Because we would go to this one area, and I can say the area because I don't do it anymore, but it's in Sulphur Springs, Texas, and there was like this back road we used to take, and it was an area we used to call Area 2, and we would go down this road. We went down there for 8 months, Wes, and like the 8-month mark, we would go down this road, and all of a sudden these game wardens, like 20 minutes later, would show up, and we later found out there was a road sensor that they put out there. So anytime a vehicle went through there, they would get alerted, and they would come out and talk to us. And then I had another buddy he was a constable in that same county, and he would call me like on my cell phone. He goes, "Hey man," I go, "What's up?" He goes, "Are you in town?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "There's a lot of chatter on the radio about you being in town." I go, "Really?"
No way.
Yeah. And so we would go get harassed by game wardens and park rangers. So
I've heard 2 or 3 stories about someone either killing a Bigfoot while hunting or finding a body that the Bigfoot had died of natural causes, and that person reporting it, and then a wildlife officer, a game warden, coming and collecting the body and then denying that it ever even happened. Obviously, those are just stories that I've heard on the internet. I don't know anyone that has experienced that, but have you ever come across similar stories where it seems like a game warden has knowledge that these things are out there and for some reason they're not being truthful about it?
I don't know if it's a game warden, but I know on my show we interviewed Luke Rose, and he was talking about a story that in East Texas, and I didn't know the story, but he was telling me the story was in East Texas about a lady driving down a rural road, and she hit a Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot went through her windshield.
Wow.
And she called the local authorities. Local authorities called the game wardens. Game wardens called some black ops people, and they showed up in a helicopter, and they, like a big trailer, and they wrapped them up in some kind of tarp, and they were gone.
Wow.
And nobody heard from the lady, and I don't know if they paid her off. I don't know. I said, what's the credibility of the story? He says, I heard it from another person, from another game warden, from another, county sheriff or something like that. I don't know how true it is because they climb up whenever you try to get them to talk about the evidence and stuff like that, or the eyewitness report. So I've heard that story, like in East Texas, and I've heard other stories, like in other states, about a Bigfoot getting hit by an 18-wheeler, or a train, and I've heard like stories of like you said, game wardens just show up and they scoop it up and it's gone.
Yeah.
Because like if you think about it, if Bigfoots are in East Texas, because like there's a lot of logging in East Texas, so if you claim that there's a Bigfoot there, that's all the logging and that's all the paper mill stuff is going to shut down. So that's big business, and they don't want that.
And why would it shut down? Just because it would be a new species that has discovered that would have to be protected? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it would be protected because they would be like if they were actually proved like a Bigfoot exists, I imagine it's going to be able to cover a lot of ground. So if it covers a lot of ground, it's going to be a big area. It's going to be a big area, big net for it to be protected in this whole area. And so if they do that, they can't cut down trees. They can't do any of that stuff. And so I know there's money there, and so there's money talking. And it's gonna stop some people from like finding the body.
Yeah, and I do wonder, Bob, why have there not been more big feet? I'll say big feet, more big feet that have been hit by cars and that wind up on the side of the highway. Why have there not been better pictures or better quality video that has been taken that's out there for people to just find that conclusively proves that there is something out there that people are seeing? Why don't we have that type of evidence?
Unless people have like dashboard cams, that's not going to happen. Because like we used to play this game whenever I was with the TBRC. We used to always like carry cameras with us, like in the field, whenever we would go check out an area, and we would carry cameras in the field, and we would say, okay, if we see something, let's videotape it. So I would actually hold a camera in my hand while I'm walking down the trail, and a red fox would pop out of the trail, and I would try to take a picture of it. I was trying to take a picture, and I couldn't do it. It's too fast. It was just gone. And so Bigfoots are even faster than that. And so I go, okay, I couldn't even take a picture. I just had a blurry shot of a black spot. Running across the trail. And so it's tough. It's tough. It's like, I used to tell this to everybody all the time, that if a Bigfoot wants to be seen, it's going to be seen. And if it doesn't, it's going to be gone. It's going to be gone before you know it. And like it took me, like whenever I was doing research in East Texas, it took me in this one area, it took me like 8 months just to get a tree break in the area, because I knew there were Bigfoot there. Because I had a bunch of sighting reports, I had a bunch of eyewitness reports, so I knew they were there. And so I would always wear like the same clothes. I would like have the same pair of pants on, same pair of shoes and the shirt. I'd wash it in mild soap, and so I would put my scent out there just to say, okay, I'm here, I'm friendly, I just want to see you and stuff. And so it took me 8 months just to get tree breaks around me and then screams. And then once I got that, I forgot, another guy came in and spooked it, and then it was gone. So I've had some stuff like that happen to me, and so to me it's just hard, because like I know I actually have some video footage of a Bigfoot crossing this guy's property. He was crossing the fence to go get some corn, and the guy died. He passed away, and the camera stuff was on his property, and his wife didn't want anybody to use the video footage, so I was never allowed to use it. So To me, that broke my heart, because we put a lot of time, a lot of effort on this one guy's property, and then whenever he passed away, she kind of just clammed up and didn't want us. She didn't want any other researchers out there doing research on her property.
But you saw the video yourself?
Yes, it was like a 5-foot fence. Like it came up to like I think the top of my ear, or like right in my chin, my ear area. And this fence was like as a barbed wire fence, and this Bigfoot was coming down this trail, and his knees was bent. And just so you know, I've never talked about this on any other show.
We've got the exclusive
on my show.
Wow!
On my show.
Hey, we appreciate it.
So it comes out this trail. His knees are bent, Wes, and it puts its hand on the barbed wire, steps right over the fence, and it has like a sagittal crest head. And it was really thin, and it just jumped over the fence, and then got some corn, came back, jumped back over the fence, and took off.
Wow!
And so we had put like 4 or 5 cameras out in this guy's area, because he's claiming that he had like geese and goats and chickens like stolen, and a bunch of his corn. And so we ended up putting cameras out, and it took us like 8 months to do that. But we ended up getting it, and then we were really happy. We showed like a small group of Bigfoot researchers, and then the gentleman passed away, and then we weren't able to show it anymore. So I respect what she wanted, and I said, okay, if you don't want us to show it, then we won't show it, because I was just telling you right now, I was never in it to get famous.
Right.
I just wanted to prove it existed. That's all I wanted to do. And once I moved out away from that, I just wanted to help people. I said, I'm just going to help people now. So I know it's out there. I'm not going to convince anybody that it's there. But if people need help, then I'm going to reach out and I'm going to help them. So, yeah, man, I just wanted to, after that gentleman passed away, we weren't able to use any of this stuff. So I kind of just went along with her wishes, and she didn't want to be known. And so we don't use any of it. We still talk about it, because I did it with Ken the Marvelous Marvel and Tim Clay, and there are some Bigfoot researchers that I with at the TBRC. So we kind of honor her wishes, and I did it. So to this day, I only talk about it. I can't show anybody like the stuff. So, but it's okay. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and I think that's respectable that you're respecting her wishes. Sounds like an incredible piece of footage, and man, I sure would like to see it myself and see what it was you saw.
Yeah, because I kind of promised her, and we gave her everything back, and any kind of copies and files we had, we gave it back to her. So I don't own any of it. I think there might be some people still posting it on chat rooms and stuff, but I don't have it.
And I've always wondered too, if let's say I won the lottery tomorrow and it was a Powerball, and I just hit it really big, I would pay. I've always wondered, why hasn't somebody paid really experienced hikers up in the Northwest and in different parts of the country, 10, 12, 15 different parts of the country where Bigfoot is seen a lot, to go deep into the woods and to put 100 trail cams in different spots in the Northwest, and then 100 in Texas, and 100 in the Smoky Mountains, and 100, and just wait for 2 years. Just let them run. Go back, however often you have to replace batteries, but just let them run for 2 years, and then go check out the footage. To me, it seems like if you're really trying to prove that Bigfoot is a real creature, that would be a worthwhile, expensive, but a worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, you think so, but it's been my experience, because a lot of Bigfoot researchers don't talk about this, but whenever I first got started in 99, 2000, we had some game trackers, just like you were talking about, and at that time, they were pretty expensive, and so we only had 3 or 4 of them at the time, and we would put them out. We would put them out in areas that we thought Bigfoots were or had a sighting report. So once we did that, we would never come up with anything. It would be pictures of deer, hog, raccoons, whatever, possums and stuff like that. And then, I remember one day, we were thin out. We had to put out one more camera, and we didn't have a camera. So I think a buddy of mine had one of those VHS tapes ones, that had you put a tape in and just hit record and go.
Right.
And so we had that, and so we took it to this one last area, and we put it in a crook of a tree, and we kind of taped it around this tree, and we took off, and we came back, and it ran out of batteries. So we went back and started looking at the video, and it turned out that we could hear something walking up behind it, and you could hear some grunts, and then a stick flew in front of it, and then a rock, and then some more sticks. And then it just went away. You could hear it walking away. And so at that time, in 99, 2000, we came up with a theory that the Bigfoots could see the infrared beam that came off game cams. And so they would avoid them. And so after a while, we used it. Say, for example, if somebody saw a Bigfoot and they didn't want it in that area, we would tell them, or I would tell them, put up game cams. Just put them up, and you won't see it. It'll move it away.
That's actually something that I've never heard anybody say anywhere before, as an explanation for maybe why, you don't have more Bigfoots caught on game cameras is because the infrared, they're sensitive to it. I've never heard that before.
I wish we still had that VHS tape that showed that, because I was like shocked whenever I saw it. And I think at the time I shared it with, I think, Eric Altman. He was the leader of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, and I shared it with him. And I think at the time I was with the group and I got in trouble for it, and I wasn't allowed to do that anymore. But I shared it with him, and he thought it was a great idea, and he was going to do it too. And I don't know if he actually ever did it. I'm still friends with him now, but I've never talked to him about it. But yeah, if we didn't have that VHS tape to put it in that crooked tree, we never would have came up with that theory, because we would just be putting them out and that was it. So, but I always used them as a get them, lure them away, or lure them to an area that we wanted them to possibly come out. So we would put them all in this one area and not in this one trail. So hoping that it would come down this one trail and it would avoid them. But we used to do that all the time, and no one's ever talked about that ever I've ever heard any other Bigfoot podcast.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theory. That really does pique my interest and kind of seem like there's something there, something that needs to be investigated more.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, Bob. The BFRO. What is your opinion on the BFRO? Is this a legitimate body that does good research, that searches this creature out, or is this something that's not even worthwhile?
When I first got into Bigfoot stuff, when I was telling the story about typing up Bigfoot in Texas, and it came up with Luke Rose, and I ended up talking to him about it. I didn't say this. I first typed in Bigfoot, and it popped up the BFRO, and so I reached out to them in '99, and I asked to be, how does one contribute, like in the state of Texas or whatever, and they never like responded back to me, and I was emailing them. And I think they finally emailed me back or something saying that because I didn't have a PhD, they wouldn't allow me in a group.
You have to have a PhD to be in the BFRO?
Yes, at that time in '99, you had to have a PhD to be in that group.
And that's the group with Matt Moneymaker?
Yep.
Does he have a PhD?
Yep. He's actually a lawyer, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So that's kind of a big turnoff if they're not even willing to allow you to learn or to be a part or to investigate if you don't have a PhD. So did that kind of shape the way that you think about them?
I'm going to say no, because I was a lot younger then, and I was angry at the time, and I was pretty pissed. And so I don't feel that way now. I mean, I think now they're more open and they let a lot more people in the group now.
Okay.
So I don't hate them, but I think I don't know if you knew this, but I'm a huge wrestling fan. So I picture them like the WWE. They're entertaining, And I've heard stories from other BFRO guys saying that they've done incident reports, and then whenever they would submit them, the big brass up in BFRO would change it to whatever they wanted, and so. That's what I've heard. I don't know if there's any validity to it. Hopefully, I can get someone on the record and talk about it. So we will see. So
yeah, let us know if you make contact with somebody from the BFRO or you have an inside source. I would be curious to know. I would love to know if things like that happen behind the scenes, if they're completely legitimate, if it is more of an entertainment thing. Keep us in the loop, if you will, on that.
Yes, I was just gonna mention that right now, because I'm supposed to interview Carter Bouchard, and he's a long time. He's out of the state of Missouri, and he's a long time BFRO advocate with that group. And so I'm supposed to interview him. He's written a couple books, and so I'm supposed to interview him. I was supposed to interview him on this week, but with the weather and rolling blackouts, I had to reschedule it. So, but yeah, I'll keep you in the loop. I'm excited about talking to him. So
yeah, that is cool. Well, Bob, there's a lot of theories out there. You hear it all. Ancient human that has survived evolution without changing, Gigantopithecus, undiscovered ape. released pets, interdimensional being, all kinds of explanations. For you, in your belief, what is a Bigfoot?
You know, and that's a great question. Whenever I first started, like in the field, I was sold. It was flesh and blood. I was sold on that. That was the teaching that we were given. There's flesh and blood. Anything else we would discard, or we would not, or the group would not pay attention to. But as I left that group and I started doing my own stuff, I started talking to different people and Native Americans and people that are medians and just stuff like that. I just talked to different people, and I've talked to a lot of Native Americans. They believe that this animal is part of the earth, so that's the reason why people don't, they can't film it, because like whenever it wants to be seen, it'll just form into like a hog or a cow or a horse or whatever. And I'm more open to hear that, because like in the past, I say if you talked about portals or you talked about shape shifting, I didn't want to talk to you. Mm-hmm. I would just turn you away whenever like that. But now I'm more open to it, because like after doing paranormal stuff, I'm what if people saw like a ghost of a Bigfoot, and that's the reason why it disappeared into the woods or it's gone. I go, it's possible. I mean, if they're alive and breathing, and then they die, they have a soul and a spirit. So I'm more open to that. So right now I'm pretty open to a lot of things on that, because like I said, being in the paranormal side, I'm a believer like in the paranormal. So I I was flesh and blood at first, but now I'm just more open to whatever it is, whether it's a spirit or it's a part of the earth. So.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I think that typically when I was younger, especially, the more I would read, I would think, okay, maybe it's possible that there is some type of undiscovered, ape in North America. Like maybe that's a possibility. I can go with that. But the more I read about Native American beliefs and culture, I start to kind of go, you know what? I'm open to anything. I'm open to all kinds of possibilities that aren't explainable, that are beyond our grasp. And I'm actually reading a book right now called Tales of the Strange. It's by a guy named Tobias Wayland. He's with the Fortean Society, and he gives an explanation in that book. The book is a collection of stories, investigations that he's done when it comes to all aspects of the paranormal. And the way that he explains it is, we are three-dimensional beings. And if there was a two-dimensional being that saw us, we would look incredibly different to them, because we are beyond their understanding. So he says, what would it look like if we as three-dimensional beings see a five-dimensional being? It might be that we're just getting a quick glimpse of it as it passes through our dimension, or it might be that we're seeing it in the way that we can as a three-dimensional being, but aren't able to perceive it in its fullness. And I thought that was a really good explanation, or at least maybe not an explanation, but a way to start thinking about things in the paranormal realm that are greater than us.
Right. I'm to me that actually sounds a little bit scary, but
it
I
is.
like it. That's awesome, because I've always believed that, like I've always thought, like, why do certain people get to see a Bigfoot, or why do certain people get to see a ghost? And it's just like, to me, it's always like about frequency and the aura that someone like emits and stuff. And so I kind of call that, like, whenever someone's like attracted to something like that, I call it like a thin veil. So like it's open for like a Bigfoot to step out and to see this, or a paranormal, or a ghost, or a spirit, or entity to see. So I'm a firm believer in it, because I know one of the stories, like I was telling you about the gentleman from Longview. He told me that this Bigfoot that he saw was massive. He said it looked like it was so. He was a wrestler, and he wrestled Andre the Giant, and so he said that this thing was 200 giants, like shoulder to shoulder.
Wow.
And this thing was so massive. And he says once it stepped into the woods, he says, Bob, when it stepped into the woods, it was like standing behind like skinny trees. But once he stepped into the woods, he said, and this always stuck with me, Wes, the woods swallowed it up. And so when he told me that, he goes, I could hear it, and I can see it shaking trees and bushes, but I could not see it. But I know it was there. because like these trees were not thick, were not wide, where it could hide behind it, but I couldn't see it. But I knew it was there because it was screaming and it was shaking like branches and trees as it was moving. And he's, that always stuck with me, is that the wood swallowed it up. I said, why wasn't he able to see it? I said, how come you couldn't see it? He goes, I don't know. It was massive, and then it was just gone. So it would take 2 steps and it was gone. And so to me, that always like intrigued me. I said, man, that's wild. I mean, no one's ever talked to me that way about a Bigfoot. And
that really does sound like something out of a Stephen King book. It's kind of a creepy, kind of a creepy thing. But it's possible. It's, things happen that are beyond our comprehension. I truly believe that. That's why on our show, I say all the time, our show is a news show, but we don't just cover politics. We cover sports and we cover the paranormal, because I think there's things that we can learn from each of those fields and things that are important. What about this, Bob? What do you make of? I'm seeing more and more of this when it comes to Bigfoot. What do you make of people that try to connect Bigfoot sightings and UFOs?
I mean, I get it. I mean, like we were saying earlier, the veil's thin, and so I've had some experiences that I can't explain, and I don't know how to explain it. And there's been like the areas I've gone to, there's been a lot of like UFO activity. I personally haven't seen one, but I can, and like people would also see like Bigfoot, so I could correlate where, like we were talking about earlier, that veil is thin, and if like people see a Bigfoot, why not see like a UFO? And it's possible. I mean, I don't count it out. I really don't. And it's like there's some areas in East Texas, and never know how close ley lines are, or just like I don't know, because like I know I've talked before in the past about EMF and infrasound. Like Bigfoots are reported to give out infrasound. And so, and EMF, ghosts give off that. So when I was talking to someone else on another show, she had mentioned that sounds like, when I was talking about EMF, she says, that sounds like infrasound. So when people get this stuff, they get like, cause like EMF, you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. It's just there. And it causes people to like, different people have different, they go differently off of it. People react differently to it. Some people get headaches. Some people get nauseated. Some people like see stuff. It's possible. All the stuff that happens, like that are in this realm or in this area, that people might if a Bigfoot emits like infrasound to a person to get them out of an area, and they start hallucinating, and they might see a UFO. It's possible. I mean, I'm not going to discount it. So. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. It actually sounds, what kept coming to my mind as you were talking is what I've seen in the news recently is the phenomenon of Havana syndrome. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with
it. Essentially, there's all of these U.S. diplomats in Cuba. That's why it's called the Havana syndrome, but also in other parts of the world. They were experiencing sickness and headaches and all kinds of physical ailments.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the thought is that some foreign government is sending some type of wave, and I'm not technologically, I don't know how to describe it, but some type of wave, kind of like what you're saying, that made them sick. And of course the CIA came out and said that there's nothing to it, it's not true, which probably means that there's something to it and it's true. But that's what kept coming into my mind when you're talking about that. What do you think is the possibility? Is there any chance that Bigfoot is an alien?
I mean, yeah, I can totally believe it. I mean, it's going to be even harder to prove it, because number one, we have to actually see a Bigfoot, and number one, we have to actually see a Bigfoot coming out of a ship or UFO or something. Because we used to get people all the time that wanted to talk to us about catching a Bigfoot, capturing it. And I said, okay, well, let's see one first, okay? Let's see one first.
That's a good point.
And then we'll talk about that. So we would have to see a Bigfoot first and then catch it. The odds would be great that we'd catch a Bigfoot coming out of a ship, or getting beamed down or whatever. I mean, I'm all for it, but it's gonna be extremely hard to catch that. So
Yep. Yeah, and this is the type of interview that we do on this show. We're going to talk about the science and the actual experience you have, and then we're just going to ask questions like, "But maybe it's an alien." Have you thought about that before?
No, I'm totally game with that. I mean, because you have to talk about stuff like that in order to discount something or to disprove it or prove it. So
right.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
So It's kind of this is our first episode like this. We're going to have, from here going forward, 3 or 4 news shows and then a standalone episode like this. You are our very first person that we've had on, and that was on purpose. That was intentional. I have listened to every episode of your show. Your podcast that you do, Bigfoot Club, is in its 4th season, and I listened to it. I started listening, honestly, after I had made like my first or 2nd episode of this show. I had recorded and put the first 2 episodes out, and I just found your show. I just searched one day, I think I was on Spotify maybe or Stitcher, and I just searched Bigfoot. And I was like, there's got to be some podcasts out there. And there was like a billion. And I listened to like 10, and the first 8 of them that I went through, I listened to like 30 seconds and was like, nope. I can't do this one. I can't listen to this person talk, not this person. I was really harsh, and I hope people aren't that judgmental towards me, but I was. And finally, I found Bigfoot Club, and I just really enjoyed just kind of the way that you go about it, how nonchalant you are, and how honest you are. So I've listened to your show. Every episode, I went back to the beginning. I've listened to them all. It's one of the handful of podcasts I actually listen to regularly. What made you start to do a podcast about Bigfoot in the first place?
And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of yours. Like I said, I don't watch politics a lot because it kind of angers me. But if I want to know about politics, I listen to your show.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that, man.
And I really like the other guy. What's his name? Teasley?
Yeah, Joshua.
Yeah, Joshua. I really like him. He has a really good radio voice.
He does. Yeah, he does.
Both of you together, it works great, and I love it. And what I want to say also about your show, and you've kind of inspired me to do this because you do a really good job on talking about your social media and how on your emails and people who like message you or whatever. I really, really like that. That inspired me. I said, you know what? I'm going to start doing that too because that's actually a great idea. I don't do that, and I really need to start doing it. But I just want to tell you that I really enjoy that about your show.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But to answer your question, what got me into it was, to be honest with you, I was never into Bigfoot to get famous or to get a TV show or whatever like that. Like so many people, and like there was I'm not going to mention his name. I don't want to do that. But there was a guy on TBRC that I just, I tried to get along with and I couldn't do it. And he was not into it to help people. He was kind of into it, for himself, and he wanted to, get famous, and he would carry like autograph pictures of himself around. I don't know why, but he did. but that to me, and like, there's so many people in the field right now that are doing podcasts or on podcast shows. There's probably like 6 or 7 guys that everybody talks to all the time, and I'm not going to miss them. I don't hate the guys. I just think they just get overly used. And so what made me want to do a podcast was that there are, because I've been in the field a long time, Wes, and I know tons of people in different states. I've talked to, different people. I've corresponded with them. I've talked to them on the phone, and there's tons of people that are not in the spotlight that need to be because they're really, really good people and they want to help people. And so what kind of like inspired me to to do it was that I wanted to bring these people to the light. So Bigfoot Club, we kind of talk to people that I think need to be brought to the light, and they just got to be heard, and I want to bring them out. And so I'm not going to be talking to that everybody that Bigfoot Sasquatch Chronicles is talking to or anybody else. So I'm just not going to do that because I want to bring something different to the table. And like I talk about Bigfoot, I talk about the paranormal. I also talk about like shows like the Book of Boba Fett or the Matrix movie,
right,
or music, because I'm a big Justin Timberlake fan, and I'll admit that. And so I talk about that. So we talk about what we want to talk about. And, like, no one's going to dictate it to me. No one's going to bully me. No one's going to counsel me. I don't really care. So I'm going to talk about what I want to and what I think is important. So I try to bring people that need to be heard, and that's just the whole thing why I got the show going.
Yeah, and anybody that's listened to your show, that's what is fun about it, is that it's its own thing. You guys do talk Bigfoot, you do talk paranormal. Anyone who does listen is well aware that you are a Justin Timberlake fan. We all know that. And I think it's great. I think it's awesome. But there are a ton of podcasts out there. There's TV shows, a couple of them that are pretty big. Finding Bigfoot. Do these podcasts, do these television shows, in your mind, are they helping or are they hurting when it comes to making this a legitimate field of study?
You know, I'm not a hater, so I'm not going to hate on any. I like I was telling you earlier, Finding Bigfoot, the BFRO, they're like, to me, they're like the WWE. They're like entertaining. They're never going to find a Bigfoot on the way they go about doing it, and I think they know that too. If they're walking around, you know, with cameras and lights in the woods, that's like setting off a Roman candle. That's Bigfoot's not, you know, they're going to go away from that.
Thank you for acknowledging
that. They know that they're gonna, but they do it anyway. But there's shows out there. There's some Bigfoot shows that I like. Like for example, Matt Knapp is my buddy, and we're in cahoots, and we're gonna be working on some projects together. I can't say what they are because I want it to come out whenever we're like ready. But he does Bigfoot Crossroads, and Matt it's a really good show, and he's a researcher that I've known for years and years and years. Lauren Smith does a show, Bigfoot Nightcrawlers Bigfoot Radio. That's a good show. And there's shows that actually help people. And I don't, you know, like I said, I'm not a hater. I'm not going to hate on other shows. And if people want to listen, if people like those other shows, that's great. If they like mine, great too. If they don't, hey, you know, they can change the dial and they can go somewhere else. But I want to bring something else to the table, and I think we do that. So, you know, I'm a Bigfoot researcher. I'm a paranormal researcher. My nephew, Steven, that's on the show, he's done some Bigfoot stuff in the field with me. My best friend, Juan, that I've known for like 40 years, he cuts my hair, by the way. And, so he's great, and like he's a non-believer. But,
shout out to Juan Valdez.
That's his shtick. It's why he's on the show. You know, I told him, because like whenever I asked him like to come on the show, he says, I don't know anything about Bigfoot. And I said, that's why I want you on. That's important. That's your role, is that you're going to ask the questions that, you know, hey, I don't believe in that, or hey, that doesn't sound, you know, viable to me, and, you know, hey, I think this is like a false story, or, I mean, that's his role, is to do that. And so I think people are going to like it, and I'm really excited about having him on the show and just moving forward. And we got some good guests coming up pretty soon, and I'm pretty happy about it, and I'm happy to be on your show. And oh man, it's just like this year's. I'm just so excited about this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year for your show. It's going to be a good year for us over here, and hopefully for folks listening. 2022 will be a bounce back year for all of us. It's been a rough and a long couple of years. If nothing else from this appearance on this show, do not be surprised if your podcast metrics start showing up that you have more listeners tuning in from India than you did before. I'm not sure if you're aware.
Yeah, I was hearing it about was it India and Russia for you, right?
Kind of a big deal in India. Don't know why. That's 32% of my listeners are from India.
Wow.
That's
awesome. I love that.
My sister swears that people are just learning English by listening to my podcast, which, you know, if you choose to learn English from a guy in Alabama who's in his shed, more power to you. I think maybe they just like the content in India. I don't know.
War Eagle, baby. War Eagle and Wildcats, right?
Yeah,
Wildcats.
absolutely. Go Cats, War Eagle. Well, I know, Bob. You know, I point people towards your show if they're interested in Bigfoot and they don't know where to start. It's a good starting point. But in addition to your podcasts, What other shows, podcasts, documentaries, books, what's out there that you would say, I give this my stamp of approval as a field researcher, this is worthwhile?
I would point out, of course, I was talking a while ago about Matt Knapp. He actually did my website, and he's a good friend of mine, and we've researched like years together, and I've known him a long time, like 20 years, and he does a show called Bigfoot Crossroads, and it's a really good show. He's doing that, and like I said, Lauren Smith does a really, really good show too. I really like her show. There's I can't think in my mind what documentary like that. The one documentary that sticks in my mind all the time is always going to be the Legend of Boggy Creek. So that, to me, that's the standard.
Yeah.
And I love that. But I will say this, okay? If you're a novice and you want to learn about Bigfoot, the first book I picked up and that I love and I would endorse wholeheartely is John Bendernagel's The North American Ape, the Sasquatch. That's probably the best book. If you want to learn about Bigfoot and about what it does, its behaviors, its what it's capable of doing, pick up that book. That is probably the best book to pick up and read in my mind.
Have you read Jeff Meldrum's book by chance?
I have not. I've talked to Jeff numerous of times. He's a good dude. I really like him. He's kind of stoic. He's kind of like, kind of secretive, kind of stoic. He's kind of like, he's kind of quiet, and he's a good dude. But I've never read his book. I mean, I think I talked to him at two Bigfoot conferences, and he's a good dude.
So for those who don't know, Jeff Meldrum is a professor of anatomy and anthropology, I think at Idaho State, something like that.
Idaho, I believe.
Idaho,
I believe.
Okay. And he wrote a book. I actually read it this past year, Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, and I thought it was pretty good. I think it's a worthwhile read. It kind of lays out the scientific case for there being some type of animal in North America that is either yet undiscovered or that we thought wasn't around anymore that is. So I don't know. I think it's a worthwhile book. It's interesting that you've met the guy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I helped interview. I think I was with Todd Partain. Todd does a Bigfoot documentary. I don't think he's in Bigfoot anymore, but he was doing a Bigfoot documentary, and I was teamed up with him, and we were at the Texas Bigfoot conference, and I cornered him. I cornered Jeff Meldrum and got him outside to do the interview. So it was kind of cool. And I go, hey, do you got a minute? I just grabbed him really quick, and he was like between speaking and talking to interviewing with someone else. So I was pretty lucky about that. So
that needs to be the clip that I cut from this episode. Yeah. I cornered Jeff Meldrum.
Yeah, it should be. But the guy that I really enjoyed talking to, he's already passed away, is John Bendernagel. I've told his story like numerous times on my show. He's a wildlife biologist from British Columbia, and he's really, really nice guy. And when I first met him, I was telling him my theories about Bigfoot, and he pulled out a pad and a pen, like a little bitty pad and pen, and he started writing down whatever I was saying.
Wow.
Now he probably never used that anywhere, Wes, but to me that meant the world to me that he was writing down what I was saying.
Yeah.
And I was thinking he's probably never going to use it. But I was really happy that he was doing it. I said, man, he was a good dude, and he was intrigued with Texas chili. He loved Texas chili. Whenever I was talking to him, he was holding a little bitty cup, a little styrofoam cup with a little plastic spoon with chili in it. He put it down to pick up a pad and pen to talk to me. So I thought it was
very cool.
I thought that was really, really cool.
Very cool. Do you think Bigfoot are dangerous?
Yeah, I really do. I think if, to be honest with you, whenever I first got into Bigfoot research, I had a 12 gauge Mossberg shotgun. And I took it to the field with me all the time. And Lou kind of talked to me about, Luke Gross, my mentor, was talking to me about not bringing it. He said, you shouldn't bring it. And I said, why? And he says, you think about it, Bob. And he said, when you pull up a camera to your face, you pull a camera up to your face and you pull a gun up to your face, Bigfoot, they think it's the same thing. He said, so he goes, I don't think you should carry guns. So I didn't carry. So I I always went into the woods, and I always felt that they know I'm there already. So I went in there with good thoughts, and I would say it out loud all the time. I said, I'm here just to study you. I just want to see you, blah, blah, blah. I would say stuff like that. And so I think that. So I think people that go out there that want to shoot it, that want to harm it, it knows it. It knows like the smell of a oiled gun, as opposed to like someone that's going out there camping. So I think they can become violent if they can. I've had a handful of stories in Texas where Bigfoot's got physical. Not a lot, but if there's like 4, there's probably like 12 that I haven't heard. So I think they can be dangerous if they actually need to be. Most of the stories that I've had, Wes, is that like Bigfoots will shadow you out of an area until you're gone. And I've had like, handful of stories like that. They were scared out of their mind, and the Bigfoots could have like grabbed them or moved them, but they didn't. They just shadowed them until they left. And so I think they can be, and I don't put it past them, because like me, they have to protect their family just like we do.
Right.
So they're like they've been like in like this land far longer than we have, I believe, and then that's my mind that so they have the right to the land, and if they want to be protected, then they'll go out of their way to do it. So that's just me.
Yeah, and I think any wild animal, if you encroach on their territory or if they feel threatened, can be dangerous. It's interesting to me, especially recently. For some reason, a lot of people that are in the field of Bigfoot or who are ardent believers almost seem to take offense if you suggest that Bigfoot are dangerous. They take offense to that, or they act as though that's a ridiculous thing to say. And I don't get that.
They're just it's like there's tons of movies of Bigfoots with like fangs and teeth and blood and stuff, and and I get it, that people are like that, and the Bigfoot community is a strange community. Like I was telling you before, if you're going to be in that field or you're going to be in that community, you got to have thick skin, and the people who do that do not have thick skin. So, so it's just one of those things that you just have to. You have to be able to. You got to take the good with the bad. You're going to run into people that support you. You're going to have people who don't support you, and don't believe your ideas and your beliefs, and that's fine. If people don't believe what I'm saying, that's fine. They can do whatever they want. I'm not here to prove it. I'm just here to help. So if you want my help, I'll help you. But if you don't, then that's good. But I get it. The people who get angry about that, and that's just part of it.
I think that makes you so much more relatable, though, and I think that's. I think people who are listening to this episode who are not believers will find you more credible or have more patience with what you're saying simply because of your attitude. The fact that you're willing to admit that the Bigfoot crowd is a strange crowd. The fact that you're willing to say, of course, I'm laughed at sometimes, and my own family or friends, some of them write me off because I'm researching Bigfoot. The fact that you say, I'm not here to convince anybody. If you don't believe it, okay, that's fine. I think that's the right attitude to have when it comes to something like this. And I wish more people were that way. But before we say goodbye, Bob, we've covered so much in the world of Bigfoot. Do you have time to play a game with us?
Absolutely.
Okay. There's a game that we like to play when we have a guest on for the first time. It's called Cap or Dap. And the way it works is I will read a statement to you, and if you think that it is not true, and if you disagree with it, you will say cap, as in like, how the kids, the slang, like that's cap, that's a lie. If you agree, if you think it is true, you will say dap, as in give me some dap. I think that's correct. So cap or dap. We've learned a lot about Bigfoot, but this will help us kind of get to know you as a person. Number one, cap or dap. You, Robert Jesse Dominguez, will at some point in your life see a Bigfoot.
I'm going to say cap.
Why cap?
Oh, because I think I missed my window whenever you research this thing, because like I was telling you before, if Bigfoots want to be seen, they're going to come out and see you. And I think I've had an opportunity to do it, and I didn't, and I I missed it. So I think I'm not in the game anymore. I can be, but I'm not in the game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to work at it just like anything else. I mean, you have to gain their trust for them to come out and see you and for you to see them. So, and you got to do it for a long time. And I would rather do a podcast because like you're either going to be a podcaster or a researcher. You can't do both because it takes a lot of time to do both.
Yep.
And so people who do like paranormal or Bigfoot stuff and do a podcast, man, I wish you the best of luck because that's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
As I know, podcasting, it takes a lot of work to do. There's a lot of, you got to do a lot of social media, you got to do a lot of editing, you got to do your research, you got to find your guests, you got to talk about you have to research your topics, you got to do other stuff. It takes a lot of time. So people that do that, I give them kudos to do it. But to research it, it's going to take a lot of my time, and I don't have that time anymore. I'd rather do it on podcasting. I'd rather educate people and talk about the things I've done, and and talk about just give them like information that they could use to get by. So that's why I kind of look at it, because like if you're not in the field, it's going to be hard. It's going to take me some time, and I just don't have that time anymore.
I got you. I hope that you're wrong. I hope that you do. I hope that Robert Jesse Dominguez is the one who proves it for us all. That's what I hope.
Oh man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. I really do.
Number 2, Cap or Dap, the Loch Ness Monster is real.
I'm gonna say Cap on that one.
Not a believer in Nessie.
I just there's probably things in the ocean that we're never gonna see or we haven't seen, but for that loch, I mean, I can't see how is going to be supported, like with that, if that animal that massive, I don't see how it could be supported with that body of water. I just don't. I mean, because if it was there, it would have been had its head out of the water all the time, and
right.
I just don't see it.
I think there's a lot of people that will agree with you on that.
Yeah. Cap
or Dap, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was a better wrestler than he is an actor.
I would say Dap on that one.
Were you a fan of him when he was a wrestler?
Yeah, I think he was a better wrestler than he is an actor. That's just me. Because like he was like he's like liquid gold, man. When he came out, it was perfect timing, perfect storm. He had it all. He had the voice. He can work with anybody. He can do storylines. He can be funny. He can be serious. It's hard to find that. Like and he was like, people were attracted to him so much, and he was like a lightning. He's like a bottle, like lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And that's just, to me, it's hard to recapture that. The closest person that can do that is Brock Lesnar, to me, in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to see Brock either win or lose, and that's just, they're the same thing with The Rock. They wanted to see him win, or they wanted to see him lose. They just want to see him talk. And so I think he's a better wrestler than he was as an actor any day. That's just me.
Yeah, and I think that he was one of the rare guys that could work as either the heel or as the guy that you root for as the hero. He kind of could function in either role, and there's not a lot of guys like that. I remember being on the playground, everybody, people that were into wrestling, people that weren't, everybody was saying, "Do you smell what The Rock is cooking?" Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody would try to do the people's elbow on me, like in PE class.
Yeah, absolutely. So many kids went to the school nurse because of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah.
How about this, Robert? Cap or Dap? Texas is the very best state that there is.
I'm biased. I'm going to say Dap. So,
I thought you might.
Not when it comes to college football, I'll say that. Okay, I'll be honest about that. Not about college football.
I slipped this one in there because the stereotype rings true, at least with all of my friends who are from Texas, in that they absolutely love Texas, and that they're all about Texas as far as a place to live, a place to grow up. They have a lot of pride in their state. I'm gonna be honest, it's not necessarily that way in Alabama. It's kind of a mixed bag. Some people think that our state is fantastic. Some people think it's the worst place to be. But
Yeah.
Texas, everybody I know from Texas, they really have a lot of pride in their state.
Yeah, I moved to Tulsa like in 2011 to be close to Matt Knapp and work with him on some projects and stuff. I was there 2 years, and I miss Texas dearly. I would drive back to Texas just to like update my registration and my license and stuff, and I would drive back to Tulsa, and I would like stop and get like a Whataburger, and I'd buy like 2 or 3 Whataburgers and put it in an ice chest and drive back to Tulsa.
Just because you were homesick.
Yep.
Yeah, one of my favorite cartoon characters of all time is from Texas, and that would be Hank Hill.
Yes.
Love
from Arlen.
Yeah, that's right. Love King of the Hill, one of my favorite shows of all time.
It's a good show.
Yeah. Cap or Dap number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Rams and win the Super Bowl. Cap or Dap?
I would say Dap.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I really do. I'm going for the Bengals. They've been terrible for a long, long time. For them to go
it's
from
time, man. It's time.
Yeah,
time for the win.
They just seem like a team of destiny, and I hope that they win. I really do.
Yeah, I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. You know.
Me too.
His turtleneck sweaters and stuff. So.
Yeah, I like Joe Burrow a lot. I hope that they win. Number 6, Cap or Dap, McDonald's has the best fast food French fries.
I would say Dap completely.
Yeah.
On that one, yeah.
Yeah, and there's others that I like the curly fries from Arby's. I like the waffle fries from Chick-fil-A. There are others out there that are good, but none of them have that addictive quality like McDonald's fries. Like I can go 2 years without eating McDonald's, and then it might be a random Thursday night at like 1 a.m, and I just get a hankering, and I just have to go through the drive-thru. It happens, and that's the only place that has fries. I don't know what they put on it. It may or may not be legal, but I crave them.
Yeah, I think my sister, before, whenever she was pregnant with my nephew Steven, who's on the show, she would call me in the middle of the night and ask me, hey, can you go to McDonald's and go get me some fries? Whenever she was pregnant, so I said, okay. So I would go drive and go get her 2 orders and bring it back to her and stuff.
That's a good brother.
Yeah.
That's a good brother right there.
Yes.
Number 7, Cap or Dap, horror movies are better than comedies.
I would say Dap on that one as well.
You like horror movies?
I love horror movies. They're like Stephen King and some of the remakes. I just love it so much. It's just one of those things. I mean, like I said before, the Legend of Boggy Creek was kind of portrayed as a horror movie, and
yep.
I just ever since I was a kid, I was just drawn to it, and I love it.
It's funny how impactful things like that in our childhood are, as far as shaping our interests, even as adults. You can look back to those things, those seminal movies that you saw as a child, and I mean, I would never turn down a good comedy. I love to laugh, love comedy movies. I love Vince Vaughn. I think he's one of my favorite comedic actors. His ability to just be funny and silly in conversation and improv. But I think I like horror movies better. I'm going to have to agree with you. Sometimes you're just in a mood, that adrenaline rush is different, and it comes only from horror movies, not from any of the others. So I do like horror.
Yeah, I have to agree with you too, because I think I do enjoy comedies, and it's like, if you listen to the podcast, I know Steven and I we joke all the time about stuff. We do puns, and we do lines from movies all the time. And sometimes some people don't get it, and it's cool. I mean, because I know we've talked about doing skits for the show, and that's what I was kind of excited about the show moving forward this year, is that we're going to do a lot more skits, and we're going to portray it and put it out. So I'm pretty excited about that. So
that's awesome. Yeah, and that'll add another dimension to the show. I think on podcasts you never have to be fearful that you're going to be too silly for your audience, or that they're not going to get your jokes, because they may not, but even if they don't, they're probably going to go Google it and look it up. If they like you, if they like this show, that's what matters. And people like authenticity. When you're yourself, when you're different, it actually gives you more credibility. So I'm all for it. Cap or Dap number 8. aliens are real?
I'm gonna say DAP on that one because the universe is too big. I mean, it's just I know if you talk to Juan, the guy on my show, he's not a believer in aliens, but he believes that aliens are time travelers from the future, and they want to come back and check on us or stuff like that. So, I mean, it just depends on who kind of who you talk to on that one, because I believe in it. But I'm also open to believe that they're, like I said, they're time travelers.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I say DAP. I think that the idea that we are the only intelligent created beings in all of every galaxy that there is, I just can't vibe with that. To me, that's a little self-centered, a little closed-minded. A lot of my family doesn't believe in aliens. That's fine. I'm not upset about it, but I think that probably there is something out there. And with all of the video footage and the sightings, and now even the government coming out and saying that there is something in the sky that we don't know what it is, that seems to be beyond our technological ability, I think that the chances are probably better than not that there's alien life. Number 9, I hope you're ready for this one. Kanye and Kim get back together.
I'm gonna say DAP on that one.
And why are you going with DAP?
I don't know. I just think they're probably, I don't know. They both like the spotlight a lot. I mean,
yes, they do.
People are always going to talk about it all the time. I don't know. I just kind of think they're both people that people can't really control. They can't control what they're going to do or how they're going to, what kind of projects they'll be working on. So I just kind of think they're going to get back together. That's just me.
Yeah, and I agree. I actually made that, I do at the beginning of the year, the first episode of each year, I make 10 predictions for that year. And they're kind of tongue-in-cheek. They're silly, a lot of them. But that was one of my predictions for this year, 2022, is that they get back together. Because,
that's awesome.
I believe in love, I believe in love. They're married, they have kids, they have a family. I would like it to work out for them. But also, like you said, nobody loves Kim Kardashian more than Kim Kardashian. But second place is Kanye West. And they both love the spotlight. So I could see them getting back together just for the publicity and for the way that it will enhance their cash value. I could see that for sure. Okay, Robert, our last one, Cap or DAP. Now That's What I Call Music is still being made.
Justin Timberlake. That's gonna be DAP on that one.
He's in quite a few of those. Do you remember those CDs? The Now That's What I Call Music 20. I don't know if we're up to like in the 30s now. I don't know, 30s or 40s. It's got to be high. I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I'm going to look it up after this show is recorded. But I'm going to have to guess that they're still being made. Maybe not in CD form, but for download, like surely. I think at one time in like high school or college, I had a bet with one of my buddies that if we got to the year, I think it was like 2030, and Now That's What I Call Music was still being made, he would owe me $500.
Yeah.
So there's a bet out there, and I've got about 8 years to go. But I think they're probably still making them. So you agree and you say DAP?
Yeah, if Justin Timberlake's around, they're going to be still making music.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to believe that 100%. So.
Well, Robert, I got to tell you, man, I'm not someone to blow smoke, but I'm honored that you would take the time out to spend a couple hours with us. This is only the 33rd episode that I've ever done. We're still finding an audience and building an audience and getting better and working out technological issues and all kinds of things. So the fact that you would take 2 hours of your time to spend with us over here to be our first interview episode, I genuinely appreciate it. I thought that you had a lot of interesting things to say. I thought it was a great conversation that will benefit anyone who hears it. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
No, man, thank you. I really appreciate it. I admire your show and what you're doing, and I it's something that I don't talk about on my show is politics. I just don't do that. It's just me. I don't think it's wrong not to talk about it. I just think I just don't talk about it, and I love it about your show, and I listen to it. So thank you, and I'm honored to be your first guest on it. That means the world to me.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. We will be plugging this show on social media. We'll be getting the word out there. But before we go, why don't you share with our listeners where they can find your podcast, what it's called, your social media, your website. Go ahead and plug all that stuff so that they can make sure and find you.
Absolutely. People can find us on our website, BigfootClubPodcast.com, and all our social media is Bigfoot Club, the number 1. So on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, if you just type in Bigfoot Club 1, you'll find us. And we're on all the platforms. We're on YouTube, so you can find us through the website as well, or you can just search us on any platform. So we're on everything. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Bigfoot Club podcaster, paranormal and Bigfoot researcher, Bigfoot Bob, Robert Jesse Dominguez, episode 33 of In the Shed with Wes Anderson. Have a great evening, brother, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, man.